Hello, everyone, and thanks for being here. Today, I'm going to be talking a little bit about the European Union Prize for Literature and how we can think critically about this prize from a conceptual and literary standpoint. So before we get into some of the larger discussions, I think it would be beneficial to give a brief overview of what the EUPL is, some of its goals, and how it operates. So the EUPL is a literary prize awarded by the European Union to recognize exceptional emerging fiction writers in Europe. In addition to providing a platform for rising authors, the EUPL prides itself on three main directives. So first, to highlight the creativity and diversity of contemporary European fiction, to promote interest in non-national literature, and lastly, to encourage domestic literary circulation. The EUPL is financed by the Creative Europe program located in Brussels, which prides itself in maintaining three primary goals similar to that of the EUPL. To promote cross-border mobility of those working in the cultural sector, encourage the transnational circulation of cultural and artistic output, and lastly, to foster an intercultural dialogue. So essentially, this program is designed to market European culture on a global spectrum. While the Creative Europe team maintains the financial aspect of the prize, the European Commission selected the FEP and the EIBF to be responsible for the practical implementation of the EUPL alongside winner selections. So the EUPL was introduced in 2009 and has since completed 4 3-year cycles and will be concluding their 5th cycle in the year 2024. Despite the misleading nature of the title, the EUPL is actually offered to 41 European countries that are participants in Creative Europe's cultural program. So therefore, 13 of the countries involved in the EUPL are actually not members of the European Union itself. This is important to remember when we start talking about and looking into some of the motives of the prize. So how does it work? First, all 41 countries are randomly divided into 3 different groups. Each year, one winner is selected from each country across the span of a 3-year cycle. Since authors cannot nominate themselves for the prize, national organizations in each participating country nominate potential winning fiction novels, which are then passed on to the FEP and the EIBF, who decide the winners. Then, lastly, each year, 14 individuals are awarded the prize and granted 5,000 euros and additional grants to aid in the translation and promotion of their respective work. At least this is how the EUPL was structured up until 2022. The 5th cycle of the prize marked a complete restructuring. Instead of awarding one winner in each of the participating countries, a 7-member European jury now awards one overall winner for each edition of the EUPL, while also recognizing 5 special mentions. The 7-member jury reviews all 14 translated samples of the nominated books each year and distinguishes 6 fiction novels for their literary achievements and their potential to cross borders based on their own personal synopses. It is important to recognize that the value of these novels is determined by their ability to promote contemporary European culture and literature transnationally. So essentially, the jury designates one overarching winner who claims the title of the primary recipient of the EUPL, while the 5 special mentions also receive transnational attention for their literary talents. However, the restructuring of the EUPL raises potential questions, like why did the Creative Europe team feel that a restructuring was necessary? Why make the EUPL more selective when the purpose of the prize is to promote the diverse wealth of European literature? Since participating countries must now compete with one another, does this affect how certain countries are grouped together? So this restructuring not only calls into question the structure of the prize and its objectives, but even sparked controversy among participating organizations. So prior to the reconstruction, the European Writers' Council acted as a third agent of the consortium alongside the FEP and the EIBF. However, the European Writers' Council publicly withdrew their position from the prize due to some disagreements on how the prize would operate. The Writers' Council stated that the new EUPL concept does not promote multilingualism as key to the European language diversity and is not following the principles of equal treatment for all participating countries. So essentially, the Writers' Council believes that the new approach will provide an unfair advantage to smaller book markets and their languages by favoring larger markets, which may lead to the ranking of certain national literature over others. The European Writers' Council represents over 160,000 authors and translators across Europe, So their departure from the EUPL allows us to think critically about the reconstruction and question the credibility and operations of the prize. So now it's time to address the main question at hand. Why would the European Union want to award a prize for literature in the first place? The goal of my research is to contemplate the European Union's motives for administering this prize by looking at it from an economic, political, and social perspective. While the EUPL serves as a constructive tool to provide funds and publicity for surfacing European fiction writers, the EU may also have some internal motives for issuing the prize. So, for instance, the EUPL can be viewed as a strategic attempt to boost publication revenue within the EU and other European countries. Europe's publication industry is a vast enterprise generating billions of euros annually. The FEP actually releases an annual survey totaling sales revenue within the publishing sector in Europe. So, for example, in 2020, despite the COVID pandemic, the EU and the EEA had a total sales revenue of approximately 22.2 billion euros, which is about 23.7 billion US dollars. So this makes Europe a highly competitive market for publication. Additionally, the FEP found that the largest markets in terms of publisher turnover were Germany, the UK, France, Spain, and Italy, which combined valued at approximately 36 to 38 billion euros. So given the significant amount of revenue the publishing sector generates within Europe, it is in the EU's best interest to promote publication, which is exactly what the EUPL accomplishes. By awarding a literary prize, the EU fosters the publication and circulation of literature transnationally, generating attractive earnings for the publishing sector. So next, it's important to discuss how the EU profits politically from this prize. So first, the EUPL brings positive media attention to the EU as a promoter of diversity and inclusion. Why title the prize the European Union Prize for Literature when many of the participating countries do not identify as members of the EU? Arguably, it would make more sense to orient the prize towards the Creative Europe program, but then the EU would not be as recognized. This can be seen as a strategic attempt to make the EU particularly visible on an international scale. The EU has also aided, the prize has also aided the EU when it comes to international relations. So, for example, in November of 2020, Japan actually hosted a European Literature Festival where 3 of the EUPL laureates participated in different panels. Given this, the EUPL can be understood as a platform to generate political discourse being disguised as a literary prize. Certain scholars who have also studied the EUPL make similar statements regarding the EU's benefits from the prize, describing the EUPL as an instrument of soft power, which is like a method of political consolidation and partial transfer of cultural policy. So essentially, prizes like the EUPL should be understood as a gift that is removed from political and economic realms, but are still deeply embedded in capitalist markets and practical politics. Overall, the promotion of international relations and positive media attention the EU receives from the EUPL serves as a superior political motive for issuing a literary prize. In talking about some of the social benefits of the EUPL, it is important to discuss the priorities of the European Union itself. So the EU's cultural policies aim to showcase the cultural and linguistic diversity of Europe while maintaining a shared history among Europeans, hence the EU's motto, United in Diversity. In many ways, individual nations significantly benefit from being members of the EU, but their national culture is often categorized under this broad umbrella term as European. This becomes problematic in the sense that it ignores certain historical and cultural experiences exclusively held by individual nations. This becomes relevant to the EUPL because it highlights the emphasis that the EU places on establishing and preserving a unified European culture. The main social benefit the EU receives from the prize is that the literature produced from the EUPL can be understood as an ideological tool to help shape European identity. So, for example, Marente de Moor was awarded the EUPL in 2014, representing the Netherlands for her novel The Dutch Maiden. There are many examples of imagery and dialogue that vividly reflect the European culture of this period, confronting readers with the question of what does it mean to be European. Anna Schoen, who has also researched this topic, shares similar sentiments, arguing that the EUPL is a form of Europeanization, and the main goal is to enable literary conversations about reverent European literature rather than the visible operations of the prize. So overall, the EU benefits from the EUPL because the winning text helped formulate participating, socially complied citizens under the name of the European Union. As we begin concluding, I think it is also helpful to answer the following question of how readily available are EUPL texts in the US, and also how can American students better engage with the prize. So as I've discussed, the Creative Europe team places a large emphasis on translation funding and mobilizing winning text across borders, but it usually takes at least a year for these texts to become available on the US market. However, there are additional ways students here in the US can interact with the prize. For example, the EUPL maintains a variety of social media accounts such as Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. They also have a weekly podcast that is available on Spotify and Apple Music that consists of a variety of discussions, such as interviews with the recipients of the EUPL. So since the EUPL is not widely heard of in the US, these digital promotion tactics are essential to spreading the word about the prize and establishing a larger audience that isn't just domestic. And then lastly, I just wanted to showcase a few of the EUPL winning texts. The first is A Garbage Chute, which was the overall winner in 2022 from Georgia, which I believe is still waiting to become available in an English translation. The last two are some that I read as part of my research. The first is All the Birds Singing by E.B. Wild, which won in 2014, and The Shelf Life of Happiness by David Machado, which won in 2015, and both of them I highly recommend. But thank you so much for tuning in today and allowing me to come share my research with you.